And everyone who will make their purchase before midnight tonight, you will get not only the 2.5% financing and $1,200 cash rebate, but any other bullshit thing you can dream up. Since we've been talking, this is the lead-in, the intro, the preface about this kind of thing and its weirdness and its non-weirdness. Let me also point out, I brought this up a few weeks back and didn't go much further, but you could look at the beginnings of all religion and all forms of mysticism under whatever names. You could look at them all quite easily as being initial celebrations, which there's plenty of records to indicate, which I'm not trying to give you a history lesson, but it would be quite believable that the origins would have been the kinds of celebrations tied to the seasons, to wit, primarily or specifically the celebration of spring, the returning of spring, wherein you've got the planting season, coom, eating season. That here it is, the sun changes its position in the heavens, winter goes away, spring starts coming back, and they're just all over the world. There are written records, all kinds of indications that at one time was the prime celebration of every group of people that have left any traces. There's another way to look then at what this kind of stuff is, assuming that gave you enough basis. You could look at this as being a kind of personal, not a collective, not a tribal, but a collective regeneration of one's intellectual self. Then you could further look at all of the various forms of ordinary so-called mysticism and all forms of occultism. If you started looking at astrology, numerology, spirit divination, dream interpretation, you can look at all of them as an attempt to rejuvenate oneself. Now, if it's ordinary people, and somebody keeps saying self, I'm sure that they would want to say rejuvenate one's soul, which is the most common verbal currency of such descriptions, even when they're speaking of the very things that I apparently refer to, such as attempts to transcend ordinary knowledge and experience, the mystical experience, in other words. That they would still want to say it has something to do with the joining of one's soul to the cosmic soul, the rejuvenation, to take what I was bringing out tonight, they would want to say probably, well, the rejuvenation of one's soul or spirit. But consider what all those forms, they're easy enough. You're not without any basis for just an ordinary intelligent man to laugh at all forms of that kind of occultism, of astrology. I mean, it obviously has no, quote, scientific basis. Or to laugh at numerology. People change their name since their present name. They add an E to their name. A guy named Buford has to add an E at the end because an astrologer tells him the way it adds up now, it comes out to a 9, and a 9 of a man of your physique and your background, portends. And you can laugh at that. And it's certainly easy enough to laugh at the idea of ancestor worship or people having seances. I don't mean the abstract ancestor worship, but people actually trying to talk to spirits, people who say that they're channeling for dead Indians or accountants or bankers. And into dream interpretation. What important messages we may be getting in dreams, why you should remember your dreams, why you should analyze them, why you should write them down, why you should discuss them. Now, all of that, as witnessed by some of you, unless we're just being unduly uncouth, it is easy enough to go, good grief, and laugh. But what are all of those? They are attempts to rejuvenate, is the way they look at it. I'm still using that term for the time being because it is actually a misnomer. That's why I'm pointing out it's not a rejuvenation, not in the sense of simply bringing back a previous condition. It would have to be a rejuvenation plus to be technically correct. But all of these forms are an attempt to, in some way, extend one's intelligence, which all of those are just an offshoot of religion. But it seems to be of a more specific nature. It always has been. Those even today who would call themselves some sort of would-be mystic or occultist would do so to differentiate themselves from the mainstream religious, wherever they were. Whether we were saying this in China or India or Brazil or Canada, they would still be saying, well, I have nothing against religion perhaps, but I am specifically interested in channeling for dead spirits, and they say it on the basis of differentiating themselves between what they believe is an individual effort and just ordinary mainstream middle-class religion, which seems to them to be, I'm sure they would say, too bland, too undernourished, worn out. But it's all the same thing, because astrology, numerology, talking to the dead, dreaming, and any idea of God, under whatever guise, under whatever religion, it's all the same thing. It is man looking for external direction. And people get tired of talking about a God, a particular God. If you were living in Albania and you grew up hearing ideas about God in a certain way, and you had any bent to become a mystic, an occultist of some sort, a doctor of the mysteries, you would distinguish yourself in your own mind and then verbally, publicly, with those who are about you. You would distinguish yourself within a short period of time from the prevailing religion. It doesn't matter which religion it was. But it's all the same. What it's based on is that the prevailing religion would seem to be that the God that the collective is talking about. Let's say that you're a little boy or girl mystic there, a 20-year-old would-be mystic in Albania, and all of your parents, the collective God of your parents, the collective God of Albania, no longer speaks to you. As far as you're concerned, he no longer speaks. You cannot hear what they say they hear, which is always true. That is the first distinguishing mark of a would-be mystic, whether it goes anywhere or not, is that they feel as though the prevailing gods are not speaking to me. I am not in tune with them, or I am out of step with them, or they are too old, whatever your particular interpretation would be. And then you might turn to, I'm just picking them out, astrology, in the belief that there is another message there, a more specific message, something that would be of more individual use to you. But it is all the same thing. You are looking for external direction. You are looking for external information in the sense that you might rejuvenate your soul or your spirit, that might do something extraordinary with you. It is always on the basis that, yes, I want it. You could say that would-be mysticism has two stages, even two fingers. But it has two stages, and this is just 5 minutes from now I could say, I just realized that mysticism has two stages, and say something completely different. So, big deal. But it just struck me this would be one way to describe it, that it has two stages. First is you decide that you want to be a mystic. That's the first stage. The second one is you realize, I don't know how. Of course, I could say there's three stages. Then the third one is you wonder the rest of your life, like, how did I get started in this? I guess that's enough. I can make a fourth stage. You can say to be a mystic has two great mysteries. The first one is you think, I believe there's a great mystery in life. And the second one is you think, God, what a mystery that I ever got involved with this. Okay. All of those attempts is as non-connected as they might seem to be. And I don't know whether I should try and press my memory for any more of these so-called occult sciences, but every one of them, no matter how strange, spirit writing, you can always narrow them down to one or two, but no matter what you think of, dream interpretation is one going on. It continues to pop up. It continues their psychological studies of a apparent serious nature going on now. Dream interpretation, perhaps, says some scientist somewhere, really hard up for a rep, decides all the good subjects have been taken, what'll I do? And it's sort of worn out, the ESP cards and stuff for a while. So then he thinks maybe, perhaps, there have been so many people who claim that dreams have given them important messages, perhaps us in the serious, intellectual, academic, psychological community have made perhaps an error, and so quickly dismissing it, perhaps I'll go back and look into it. Of course, then they look up to see if anybody shows any interest that has their hands on a grant fund that shows interest, like, well, hey, we might go for that. Dream interpretation, premonitions, all of that. It's easy to laugh at it from one view and say, well, it's absolutely silly. It's also easy enough to go, well, it must have some significance. How about dreams? If nothing else, the ordinary mind will always latch onto this. It will always say, assuming that the person I am making up has any inclination to be attracted to dreams, then they can say, wait a minute, you should not laugh so quickly at dreams and their potential import, their potential significance. Because, if for no other reason, how about this? We have written record that for a good 2,500 years, other people have taken it seriously. Huh? Which is the ordinary mind, that'll almost get you. Like, Of course, nobody else says, ordinary people won't say, well, wait a minute. Would I eat something that's 2,500 years old? I mean, if I get close to it and it stinks, and it's got maggots around it, and somebody says, yeah, but you shouldn't turn away so quickly. This food has been here for 2,500 years. And you go, well, hey, in that case, until you think about it, assuming you can think. The longevity, as I'm sure you should know by now, the longevity is always a very significant factor with the ordinary mind. It's why I brought up, it wasn't just a silly example, it's why you can make people, although I did use it symbolically, but you can get people to partake of rancid food on the basis they say, Jesus, this is so old it's spoiled. And they go, yes, but it's so old it must be worthwhile. Why else would it have lasted this long? And you go, oh, well, you got me there, and just, eat away. Remember, we're speaking symbolically, but it is the same thing. But you make a grave error, you make an error that can interfere with seeing part of point-blank reality. It's like a small cataract. If you underestimate, or if you do not take into consideration when you're looking at ordinary men's and your ordinary mind's relationship to life, if you do not take into full account the importance of longevity. Because you can laugh and say, well, just because somebody believes something is true, and the man's been believing it's true for 3,000 years, that doesn't mean it's true. Well, certainly it doesn't. But if you discount it without and do not take into consideration that it has survived this long, there is no real punchline to this. I'm just hoping you'd see it. Astrology. The defenders of astrology will bring it out that, hey, don't turn us away from the door just out of hand. Astrology, they loved this one. Astrology was a science before astronomy was. And you can go, well, wait a minute, give me a second, think of a witty comeback. Just because I personally, as an astrologer, just because you may not respect me, or I can't prove to you this second, remember this, I am in a long line, 3,000 years worth of astrologers. Many people's believed in it. Just because you say that it has no basis, 3,000 years and it's still here? Huh? And you have to think, well, geez, there's something to think about. Yeah, it is. But if you just walk up and go, yeah, it is something to think about, you're not thinking about it. They are all attempts. Don't forget my little preface, my little intro, my little lead-in was about how weird this kind of stuff is and how not weird it is. The weirdness is that there are such strange beliefs. And I was speaking on astrology tonight in a sense rather than religion, but religion is in a sense stranger than astrology. I guess according to your personal sense of strangeness, that there is an external God, or somebody outside the system, way outside, so far outside the cosmos that damn close to being on black velvet. That there can be a system outside the system that your system can conceive of. Right. They are all the attempt to extend one's nervous system. They're all an attempt, a driven attempt. It's not insanity, it's not man's stupidity, it's not man's ignorance. They're all an ongoing attempt for humanity to expand the nervous system. And there you are like a little bean sprout, each person and collectively, but there you are, and it's where to go. You suddenly find yourself out in the middle of a field. You're your own little bean sprout. You're surrounded by other bean sprouts. Nobody knows how they got there. Not as long as you're in the bean sprout state of mind. Pardon me, Billy Joel. But you don't know, and you think, well, what can I do? What can I do? I need directions. And you glance around, there's little bean sprout records, and you find out, well, I may live to be 65 years, and evidently, if nobody comes along, if a woodpecker or a sparrow didn't come along and gobble me up, some evil force, perhaps I'll live out my days, and rain's coming down, sun, winter, spring. I guess I'll survive, but boy, I feel like growing. It's like something urging me up. Deep down within the soul of terra firma, Mother Earth, is Jim Henson's hands up the little bean sprout Snickers going up, up, up. And you feel like, yes, yes, but exactly which way? And you look around, and at that level, all the bean sprouts collectively are at the same level. I know you want to believe otherwise. If you're an ordinary bean sprout, that's fine. Some of the bean sprouts put on funny hats and dress up like women and light candles and take titles. They give one another title. One of them says, well, you're bishop. And as soon as he's bishop, he turns around and the one that made him bishop and says, well, you're cardinal. It's where the term pulling one's roots up by the bootstraps came from. Except it's strange, not only are pulling yourself up, not only is that an illusion, bootstraps are an illusion, but as long as one guy says, what I need is some bootstraps by which I can pull myself up, and he turns around to the bean sprout next to him and he says, if nobody's listening, I give you the authority. Tomorrow, just suddenly say, the gods, the sun, has told me that I should give bootstraps to some worthy, some bean sprout here in our midst. And when you do that and you get their attention, you suddenly turn to me and go, it was him. And then after I get that way, I'll make you my assistant. It's a little ladder game. At any rate, all the bean sprouts are at the same level. And so you don't know what to do. Ordinary people give up, as we've already established, but if you're a would-be mystical bean sprout, and you turn around and you realize the rest of them are at the same level, intellectually, soulfully, spiritually, evolutionarily. I look around at the bean sprouts with the funny hats on, the bean sprouts, and with bells and candles and whips and chains. Well, that's a different thing. It's easy to get religion confused with other things when you worship on 42nd Street. But the Church of the Pink Pussycat, I think. Wasn't that the name of it? Plus, they had strange icons. Wasn't crosses or stars of David. Well, you don't hear about it. If you're a would-be mystical bean sprout, you finally have to come to the conclusion, if you can do it, sans rancor. You get over being upset, you eventually look around and you know that every bean sprout there, no matter their title, no matter their social position, no matter their wealth, they do not know him more than you. So then if you're a would-be mystical bean sprout, you have to, what are you going to do? The urge is there. It's not imagination. Me pointing out the two mysteries to being a would-be mystic. The first mystery, that I feel like I want to do something mysterious. There's nothing mysterious. That's not a mystery. Everyone feels it. I have to refer you back now to my own mother of all myths. That one time, everyone knew a secret. Once, everyone knew a secret. Most forgot it, some didn't. The end. Most give up when they look around, and they probably join in whatever the prevailing bean religion is, a bean sprout religion, the Church of the Pink Pussycat. It's nothing else. The would-be mystics find that the voice of the prevailing bean sprout religion is not sufficient. So where to look? We have all the possibilities are gone. I mean, you look around, the bean sprouts do not know. You look down to earth, which is like looking down to the cats, it's like looking in your own hormones. It's like looking back to Sumeria and Babylonia. You can read the history, but it doesn't help you. You're looking down your own nervous system. You're looking into the past. You can learn something. Do not, of course, fall into the trap that ordinary civilized, educated people do, such as what you can learn. You do not need 40 years of psychiatric analysis at $100 a pop. That is proof that you're an idiot. I mean, just an ordinary idiot, no problem. But if you're a would-be mystic, it's proof that you're wasting your time. You're an irreversible dolt. Because what you can learn about the past, what is significance about your hormonal past, if you cannot, once you see it for yourself, what it is, and once you know how to go and look down, it's worth, I don't know. I'll try to be, well, I don't make you feel bad. It's worth maybe 5 minutes. Once you look into it, it's like having a book, and the secret of all subconscious, unconscious, from the past traumas, and you get the book, it's worth maybe, I'll grant you 2 or 3 minutes maybe. But past that, you're back to Doltville. You might as well go into analysis. There is nothing at that level to learn with a bean sprout. All right, 5 minutes. We've established that, okay? But then it's like, all right, I'm over that. I'm satisfied with my roots. Here I am, I'm a bean sprout. I'm here by life. But now what? So you've settled that. Then you've got to look for direction, instruction, some sort of knowledge. And there's only natural. You look elsewhere. You look externally. That is what all forms of religion are. That's what all forms of mysticism are. That's what all forms of occultism is. Not are, is. It's a search for external direction. I've always wanted to stop there when I bring it up some night. It is just one of the historic neural stumbling blocks of people. It's like a broken rung on the ladder. They get there and it's like, I can see people do it and they go, well, yeah. But that's all it is. Everyone who believes, and I don't mean that there's any useful sanity to it, but everyone who says, God talks to me, or spirits, dead people talk to me, or I can look into the heavens, and when the planets get in a certain way, I feel emanations. Or I can put my hand on an object and I feel vibrations that come from the past or that come from other worlds. It's all the same thing. Now, I don't mean there's any validity to any of it or anything useful, but it's all based on the same thing, and that is, I am looking, the person that does it, I am looking for direction, and it's not in me. And it's not in the people next to me. My mother doesn't know, my rabbi, my priest, my psychologist, my high school teacher. So where's it going to come from? There's only one place left, out there. And the more out there, the better. Well, because you've already established the people right next to you. Your parish priest, your neighborhood rabbi, your mother, your uncle, they don't know. You go a little far afield, maybe you save up some money and you travel and you go meet a priest in another city, or you go meet a yogi or a mystic somewhere. Within a day's ride, $50 Greyhound ticket or something. You exhaust this planet as far as you're concerned. Then, that's what I mean, the further away the better. That's why God is such a miraculous, no pun intended, concept. Because the further away the better. God was sort of an improvement, well, that's according to how you look at it, over astrology, because astrology, they kept looking up at planets that you even see with a dime store, telescope. Unless it's that kind that shows the girls from the Church of the Pink Pussycat. But anyway, you could see those planets. Better yet is God. Or the dead. Well, God's even better yet. Because the dead, you always think, well, it's a dead person. And then your mind wants to picture the person. But God, unless you've ever seen any of the actual photographs that they have, that they've reprinted in Mexico on black velvet, then you don't really know what he looks like, and you don't know where he is, and it's so far away, it's harder to put any sort of critique on what seems to be the information. That's why religion has survived so long. It is the forerunner of all ideas of men, arts, different arts reinventing themselves, that popular phrase. Religion is the mother of all of that. Because as long as you can keep it away, as long as you can keep God far away, you can't kill him. You can't do him in. That he will continue to regenerate himself. He? Oh, all right. The mind's thinking about him. But it is always a looking for external direction and knowledge. Take it either way you want. This sort of thing is an attempt to rejuvenate yourself without relying on that. Then if someone had the audacity, which I'll have it for you, to say, well, how do you do that? Well, geez, if I got to answer everything, all right, I will. It can't be explained. Well, would you try? Sure, I'll try. Hey, they can't shoot you for trying. They can only stab you for trying. Well, in 2 states they can poison you for trying, but I personally stay out of those 2. I got no business going there anyway. Ordinary people cannot think. Ordinary people cannot play the intellectual handball game without a front wall. Those of you who do not know a handball court, the front wall is the one you serve against. It's the one right in front of you. It's probably why they call it the front wall. You could, I guess, in a sense, do away with the other walls or get by. One of them could fall out. But you cannot play handball without a front wall. You can't even start the game. You cannot think. The ordinary mind cannot think without a front wall. That is what all ideas of religion, all forms of belief that there is an external source of direction / knowledge. There's got to be a front wall. It is an echo for all opinion. It is an echo for all ignorance. But it is what I tried to display the other night. It was like would be an ordinary person having an idea. And they can do it alone. It may be easier for me to describe as a discussion between 2 people, but you do it with yourself. Because you suddenly have an idea. If you're ordinary, it's always a basis that it's some reaction to some other idea. That you could be sitting there, an ordinary person, be listening to this and say, well, what you just said about religion, and what it is you feel as though it's, that I just had an idea, and you serve. And if the ball doesn't come back, if there's no front wall, an ordinary person is absolutely, they do not analyze it, but they are at a loss. The idea is gone. It is literally as though they threw a frisbee and nobody got it, or let me stick, I guess, one allegory at a time. Well, some people get touchy. You hit the ball and you think, all right, so idea you just had, and you think, what you just said reminded me, but what you said was almost true, but that couldn't be because, and it comes back, because I read one time it wasn't, or one time I thought it wasn't, or my priest said it wasn't, or I'd never heard that before. The idea, it's almost as though you have a new idea, the serve of a new game, that you hear an idea, that maybe you think you thought of it, of, hey, I wonder if it's possible that all religion just sprang from the initial shock of becoming verbal. Something's got to come back to your mind, as good as that comment was, by the way. I may use that. May I? Hey, be my guest. The whole idea of God and the divine came about through the initial shock of man becoming verbal. You suddenly have this, and you go, And nothing else comes to mind regarding that. And when I say comes to mind, it would have to be some reaction to that. The easy way to describe it is probably some adverse playback to it, like, well, now wait, it couldn't be totally that. How about that? That's fairly safe. The mind goes, wait, no, wait, we might be onto something. Maybe I should write this down and I'll, analyze it, meditate on it later, because there may be some modicum of reality there, but that could not be a full telling of the situation. It couldn't be that the basis of all of man's religious beliefs come about through the original shock of becoming verbal. So that's when you hit it, and it says, well, there may be some useful basis there to pursue further, but that couldn't be the whole truth. The ball's still in play, all right? You still got God. You still got a conception of the divine, the mystical. Ordinary people have got to have that just to stay sane, much less to become would-be mystics. But to actually pursue this sort of thing, besides the dream world, you've got to play without a front wall. Because as long as you play with a front wall, you're locked in to a handball court. Again, for those of you who don't know, handball court is a enclosed room. 4 walls, floor and ceiling. You have got to be able, what the ordinary people are people who have had so-called mystical experience, people who have been conscious without their feet nailed to thought, without being limited to thought consciousness, to verbal consciousness. All of the many descriptions I've dug up and rephrased myself for you, what they're describing is they start out thinking. They'll say that they'd been meditating or perhaps taking some drug or a flashback from some drug or some shock. Anyway, they say, I was meditating, as is so often my wont. Early in the morning I was looking at a rose petal that I keep on the table. And I looked at it trying to think, in what way does this represent the reoccurring life of man? And suddenly, and of course that's when they're now in retrospect trying to describe. But what happened was, all their description is that thought started and it did not hit a front wall. By the way, I can't resist doing this at times. Beyond what might appear to be out of the ordinary experiences such as that, which I grant you most people do not have along with their breakfast, even those who have flowers on the table, that's not a norm that takes place. But there is a basis for this that's very well known, which is the phrase, go with your first thought. You can hear that amongst writers, philosophers, just ordinary people, I guess. They'll say, well, plumbers, carpenters, somebody trying to fix something. They can say, well, sometimes I try to think, well, how would I go about designing this? Or how could I make this look better? Or how could I repair this? And I don't know why, but I suddenly thought, well, I should do so-and-so. Now I mentioned it to somebody, to a mechanic, to a guy who does carpentry work, to a guy who does cabinet work, and I mentioned it, and they started saying, well, wait a minute, I'd never heard of that. And they said, well, sometimes we go about something similar, and I went ahead and tried it, or I lost interest. And you can hear just some people talking. And I don't mean if they have any knowledge of what they're doing, and another guy say, well, I know what you mean, but I found out in life, and it may be meaningless that he said it, but it's likely you can hear somebody say, well, I found out in life, go with your first thought. You hear people say it in relationships, which I wanted to start off with something a little more mundane like carpentry and plumbing and such, but relationships, people say, well, first impressions are usually the safest. All that's based upon there being a singular impact, even a small, unrealized level, when you can have a thought and there seems to be no great opposition to it. That it seems to be that you played a thought, played a ball, and it didn't really seem to come right back at you. It was almost as though that you had a thought. I guess that's enough attempt to make the weird sound simplistic, since now it's sounding even weirder, right? But I would suggest to you that is what many of you have already been through, that you suddenly see something, got no logical basis, it could not be verbally, logically proven. Of course, if you get good at it, you wouldn't try to prove it, but you just have a thought and it's just zing. It's just a realization that so-and-so's true. At least right then, to you, and there's nothing else to be said. And it goes out over the horizon. There is no front wall. It's just bang, and it's gone. And there is a feeling. It's not the proof of it, but there is a feeling that many of you will surely eventually become familiar with, that you don't discuss it. It's not like, well, wait a minute, that is so weird, I better slow down here. Do you know it? It's just, hey, I saw it. That's the end of it. There's nothing to write down, there's nothing to go back and analyze, there's nothing to think, well, perhaps I'm going off the deep end. I mean, my mind, the thought I had said, religion is nothing but a reaction, and then you think, wait a minute, I should not be so all-inclusive. I should not let such dogmatic statements regarding something as wide and diverse as the many aspects of man's religious life to be wrapped up in a 6 or 7 word sentence. Well, that's right. If you're going to be ordinary and dumb and stupid, mundane, middle class, ordinary, you're right, you shouldn't. But when you get good, it just goes, and it's gone, it's over. You could, in fact, look at this kind of stuff as being, since I've tried to lead up several times before, that you could say that consciousness, that is the brain. You're getting juice, you're getting electrochemical energy to the brain, you become conscious. It means nothing until you think. That you could say that initial consciousness was Adam and Eve in the garden. No talk. They're just there. It's the bean sprouts. Just living a nice, peaceful, silent, bean sprout existence. Consciousness is nothing but a potential until you can think. But then in a sense, when you can think, it's too late then. Which of course is silly. Now that I mentioned that, does anybody realize a lot of things when I say of course and but, and I play somebody else's part, is I've already sent one out that actually deserved no front wall, but then I stop and I play front wall for you, because so many of you keep waiting like, well, you know, what's the rest of it? And there's no rest of it. I just sat and went, which also is what the news items and the Kairos and all that is, in case you hadn't noticed, because it gives me an excuse normally not to do it, because I won't stop in the middle of them. I just read it and it's, now I'm on the next page. You could look at consciousness as being a potential, the silent life of man with a nervous system, with a brain that has the potential to single him out, but it is useless, meaningless, moot until he can think. And when he can think, Jesus, then it's too late. Just kind of see the little joke. Because you can say, well, it can't be too late. You just said it wouldn't have mattered anything anyway unless we could think. Yeah, it wouldn't have. But then when you can, it's already too late. And then if you're good, you're supposed to say, would somebody give me a break? No. It's like the warden says, well, you've been in prison all these years and now we're going to let you go. And as soon as you step out the door, he shoots you in the back of the head. Something like that. Oh, we can try it the other way around. It also works the other way around. You suddenly find you're right side of a door and somebody shoots you in the back of the head and you step backwards and you're in prison. You can do it that way. It takes a bit more intellectual fleet of footness, but it can be done. Or not. It's why everyone, including yours truly, has to make a distinguishing remark, add a word, an adjective, that it's no longer just being conscious, because you were conscious one time without words for a split second. But then as soon as you had words, you were no longer simply conscious. And so now it's a form of, tonight I was saying, rejuvenated. It is like a form of liberated consciousness. It is a form of, the easy way to say, higher consciousness. which always sounds great to say, what we're struggling for is a state of higher consciousness. And you can always do that. And they figure you either are basically a mystic or you're like trying to sell used cars and going to say, don't forget, $1,200 cash rebate. And your payments will never go any higher than... All of the great experiences, the mystical experiences, etc., they do describe, a different state of consciousness. As crude as they may be after the fact, as crude as they must be after the fact, because they are now back to verbally based consciousness, trying to describe that which is non-verbally based. And one of the first things they say is, the experience was absolutely beyond words. So, here I go. 600 pages, 12 volumes, a lifetime of writing about it. What else can you do if it's indescribable? It takes a man a split second when he comes back and realizes what I saw is beyond all words. So what'll I do? I'll describe the mother. The other state, the state itself, though, to tie it into what I was giving you with the handball game, you could look at this kind of stuff compared to ordinary thinking. You can look at it as being consciousness without resistance, which is exactly what thought is. Thought is polar-based. Speech is polar-based. What ordinary people call being conscious, which they can call it that, it's fair, because if you are awake and can talk and your eyes move around, you are conscious as opposed to medically being in a coma, that you could still be alive. They could measure some brain activity the same way they can someone asleep, but you could be in that kind of catatonic state the rest of your life and never regain medical consciousness. We all understand that. So the ordinary state of consciousness, you are continually continually relying upon a polar-based flow of energy, which is the front wall. It's only ordinary people that take it seriously, like, wait a minute, I'm playing the ball and it's these other idiots keep knocking it back. And what they're referring to is, I have the right idea about whatever this game is I'm playing now, this particular moment, politics, morality, whatever, economics, and those idiots keep playing it back. But do understand that quite literally, you could not think, if you're an ordinary person, did they not play it back? If it were not for the very things that you think, or the very sources that you think are of detrimental influence in life. Muslims thinking that it's Jews, or Protestants thinking it's Catholics, or Republicans thinking it's Democrats, or fascists thinking it's socialists, whatever. Short people thinking it's tall people. Whatever it is that conflicts with your play, you take it as being that worthy of attack. I mean, you got to. But were it not for that, if you recall where I stole this from, was from myself, not before last, when I had that whole little series of mental health and one of them was as a handball game. That the ordinary could not stay sane, did they not have a front wall. They literally could not stay sane, or even, if you can be more literal than literally, they could not think. You could not think. At the ordinary level of so-called consciousness, were it not for a front wall. That is why I suggest to use their own descriptions. They say there would be those who have had an extraordinary, meta-empirical, meta-gnostic experience say it was just beyond words. They're literally telling the truth, because what they were conscious of was no resistance. Nothing comes back. That would be insanity to an ordinary mind. It is insanity from one. Now I've said that with a slight variation. That is, if it's an ordinary mind playing that game, which is not literally the same, but it is an absolute form of dangerous fanaticism. Whether it be a Mussolini or just, you've got some nutty uncle or somebody that lives down the street, but it's the kind of person, that you're just simply right. Hey, so I'll tell you what, it's a bunch of secret bankers in Switzerland run the world. Oh, come on, Uncle, you know that's not true. You don't know anything. In other words, somebody just absolutely, somebody that if you look in the dictionary under dogmatic or fanatic, they got their picture. That, in a sense, is people that, they know that there's resistance. They do not tolerate it. They do not entertain it, that I'm right and that's it. So what I wanted you to see was anything even approaching that at the ordinary level is not of any benefit. You are absolutely, what I said, insane. That is, the ordinary cannot stay sane without a front wall. They've got to have that kind of resistance. They have got to have that. Even if they do not see it as being resistance, what it does is reaffirm their own game. It reaffirms their own position, that you hit an idea out like God is love, or we should all be charitable, or poverty causes crime, or lawyers cause bad weather. You have to go, pow! And even if you're not that involved, if you're not that identified and upset by the opposition, it still has to be there to reaffirm where you are. That you go, well, God is love. And then somebody comes back and says, it comes back and somebody says, how can you say that when there are children starving in Knoxville? And you say, well, wait a minute. You understand? It reaffirmed your position. Somebody played it back. Or it can be just somebody says, you're my kind of guy. By God, let me buy you a drink. It reaffirms that there you stand, you had this idea, your nervous system, and it hits an idea. It's like shouting. You remember this Noah the other night that said mental health is a trip to the Grand Canyon. It said the ordinary could not stay sane if they did not hear an echo when they shout, when they think. So even if it's not in opposition, if you say, well, God is love, and you suddenly hear a voice say, my kind of guy. Or you got it. It reaffirms your position that you know something happened. But you stand there and you hit a thought out, an ordinary person, and there's nothing. It's worse than the dreams that seems that are not in common with most people, that sometime you dream that you're suddenly out in downtown Flint, Michigan, around about 12:30, and you're naked. And everybody's in business suits and business power dresses, and everybody walking back and forth with their briefcases, and there you stand, naked. I mean, in the middle of town. That's nothing. This is insanity. If it could happen. But when it does happen to ordinary people who are ordinarily sane, not fanatics, the thought is it's like it disappears. They do not remember that it happened. It's just a short burst. It might as well have been a bad dream, a dream that they did not remember. It's just a flash of lightning that hit the goo field, and they look away. They're going on all the time. You can look at this sort of thing. What I started to say is it is a kind of consciousness to distinguish it between what ordinarily happens and not to completely take it away from the world of thought, because it's not. It's just there's no way to easily distinguish it verbally. But it is like being conscious without resistance. At this level that we're talking now, the resistance is meaningless out there. I'm not even referring to out there, because if you are that conscious, no one knows it but you. You're not going around telling people and grabbing people, even your friends, and saying, listen, let me tell you what I just thought. Let me tell you what I just became conscious of. Because if you're that conscious, you realize there's nothing to say. But it would be consciousness without resistance. That what you thought, now remember the resistance, we're not talking about out there. It's not in you. That you just see, point blank. That kind of consciousness is, well, I'll be down. After all this effort, after all my good luck and the universe and the cosmos smiling on me, I am right now, without any doubt, this is the experience. And I'll be just mortally goddamned. This is so astounding. You know what? I'm standing here right now seeing the obvious. I was hoping some of you get the point that I could have made it. I could have hammed it up more. But after all this effort, after torturing myself, after taking drugs, after doing so and so, and now the experience. It's even greater than everybody described. I see things. I can see the obvious. You cannot see the obvious. You cannot see what I've been calling point blank reality as long as there's resistance. Or another way to look at resistance is any discussion, because that's what the front wall is. That's what polarized energy is based on. It's not just always overt opposition, but some dialogue. And you don't need another person. It's you. Like, well, they can't treat me like this. Well, maybe I deserved it. Well, maybe I did in the past, but gee, I didn't do anything. Yeah, but you could be paying for past sins in another life. Yeah, but I don't believe in reincarnation. Well, maybe it's just sins that you forgot about in this life. You understand? It's simply you inside there going, do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. And you're whispering in your own ear saying, wait a minute, you're stepping on my foot. You go, I'm not stepping on your foot. Maybe I'm getting somewhere. Maybe if I can lose a little more weight, or if I can cut down on drinking, maybe I'll get more conscious. Well, there's no proof of that. Yeah, but it could be worth a try. Well, yeah, you got me there. There's no dialogue. I know there's been even the write about it later mystics. That's a whole term. The write about it later mystics has even tried to describe the great experience as saying that the internal dialogue stopped. Ordinary people not even aware of it. The dialogue. Or you can make people go, oh yeah, sometimes I guess you kind of have things go in your mind. But those who have had the experience and later tried to write about that's one of the things they tried to, in retrospect, grasp onto and say, well, what it was, I know I can't describe it, but it was like I was conscious, but this internal chatter, this dialogue, of which I was never that aware was going on, but I was aware that it stopped. And I was not unconscious. I was not under the influence of some psychedelic drug. I was conscious. I was just as clear-sighted. But I was suddenly aware of the fact that continually inside of me is like this dance, this dialogue, this clatter and chatter going on, and it stopped. God, what do I do to get it back? Whew, I want it back so bad. Oh, hell, I may write another book about it. That's how bad I want it back. It is a consciousness without any resistance. It is without any dialogue. It is without any confirmation, which is resistance. It's not thinking something and then going, could I be right? I believe I am, by God. I believe I've got it. I'm getting closer. No. You might be dancing faster. You might be dancing closer to the exit where there is no wall left. But it is consciousness without. What I won't say is, which is hard to do, is consciousness without anything. But see, to do it right, I have to say it's consciousness. And then you'd have to figure out, well, he meant without anything. Because that's the only way to do it, is say, the kind of consciousness that everyone has always dreamed of and those who write about it once they had it once. And what I'm referring to is consciousness. You see, I know it may sound silly, but I was hoping somebody would follow it. That is the pickle barrel, peccadillo, pondry, quandary, in which you find yourself. Because the real telling of the sentence, consciousness without resistance, or consciousness without words, or consciousness without anything else. The sentence should be consciousness. You do see the justice of it, don't you? If what I'm referring to, like the consciousness, this other consciousness is consciousness without words, then to say that sentence correctly, or to be as truthful as possible, I'd say, all right, the other kind of consciousness is consciousness, and then you're supposed to go in your head without words. Well, how about consciousness at ease? Since last time I was trying to tie in being uneasy, being restless, how that was a sort of a milder, even a more encompassing idea of being hostile and aggressive. being uneasy, being edgy, which anytime you're within a closed environment, if you're the right kind of person, it makes you edgy. In a closed environment, you don't have to worry just about prison cells. Try handball court. Because they can interrogate you inside of a handball court the same way they can inside of Stalag 17. Because as long as you got walls and a floor, as long as you got somewhere to bounce off echoes, as long as you got something to resist, as long as you got something to return your serve, your thought, you'll answer questions forever. You'll spill your guts. I mean, it's meaningless. You keep spilling the same guts over and over. Like an ordinary person keeps suffering the same way over and over. Keep suffering the same things over and over. And we'll say, well, this time it's a different story. They sent in a different mad German general to interrogate me, to torture me this time. That's like women who say, God, I'm so happy that I got divorced from that old fat guy that drank and beat me up all those years. And you go, wait a minute, the guy I just saw? Yeah, I just left him. You go, well, I saw you 10 years ago and you were married. I thought that was him. Oh, no, you're talking about Buford, the guy I was married to before. You think, well, that's him. Oh, no, that's Hubert. No, I married him 10 years later. You do catch the story, it's the whole idea. Boy, I'm so thankful I ain't Gladys divorced that drunken fat pig. Yeah, but you didn't know that 2 weeks later she married no one just like him? So that's why the more astute do not have to worry about the idea of reincarnation or to look over the horizon for, to relive a life. To relive a life is the front wall of the handball court. You'll not only relive your life, you'll continue to spill your guts. That is, tell what kind of guy you are. That is, continue to tell yourself internally, dance, damn it, dance. It's an old joke. Well, it used to be an old joke. I'm about to turn it into a mystical lesson. I ought to say this for a news item, but here goes, on the spot. Metaphors, symbolism. No, it's not. It's a fucking joke. Frigging joke. This is not the image. A guy sees this idea. He sees this idea factory, another mind, another possible consciousness. And he thinks, I gotta have her. I'm gonna make it so that it sounds sexual, it doesn't matter. He says, God, I gotta have her. And he watches her dance, and she can go, da, 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 da. And it's just the dancing, the ability, the grace, the fleet, and she can do steps he's never seen before. I never thought of that. And finally, he looks her up and down, though, and she is the ugliest bitch he's ever seen. The ugliest person. You women can reverse this, it doesn't matter. But he just can't help himself. So he finally takes her, cleaves to her as his own. That's what mystics and Baptist mystics in Louisiana used to say. And cleaved into himself her for eternity. He tooken her for his betrothal. But then, after like the first night, after the first year of being attracted, remember this is something that reaffirmed, that came back, the fleet of foot, the grace that she could dance, neural steps, but ugly. In the middle of the night sometimes he'll wake up and turn over and see her laying there. And how ugly. And he grabs her and says, wake up, damn it, dance! That, if I shouldn't get into practicing medicine without a thermometer, that is a total diagnosis and operating description of all forms of neuroses. That is the internal chatter. That is the internal dance. That is the playing it off. But I'm saying now neuroses, trying to exaggerate a little bit, that is the continual dance, the continual chatter, the continual dialogue that a man has in his own mind. But in this case, I was trying to color it a little bit so it might make it stand out like the old litmus test. That people who have some complaint with their mind, and they will say, wake up, damn it, and dance. But they're in the same position. You say, somebody you hadn't seen in years, you go, well, and you ask them about their opinions, you try to get a feel about their kind of mindset, about politics or whatever it was they're interested in, and you find 20 years later they're doing the same thing. Do you understand? It's the same. I was trying to draw you the parallel between, well, thank God that Aunt Gladys, that son of a bitch that beat her and drank all the time, died. And she's finally rid of him. Yeah, but didn't you hear? 2 weeks later, she met one just like him and married him a week later. Wake up, damn it, dance. You don't get it? All right, the other way. The ordinary goes, pow! The most beautiful shot they ever made. Who needs another dancer? Who needs somebody to sleep with mentally? I just had a thought. This may be the thought. Pow! They will then insist. Holler back to me, damn it! What kind of Grand Canyon is this? I shouted down there and nothing. Wait a minute. This is some kind of out-of-town Grand Canyon. This is one of those cheap things that they brought in for tourists. Should we leave on a high, mellow, confused, metaphorical note? Hey, speak for yourself. Wake up, damn it. Dance.